Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories mixed with Am I the Arsehole as well. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, that subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. It really does help out the channel. I know I say it every time, but it truly does. So thank you for being awesome to one another, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, listen, big warning before we get into this first story. You do not want to be eating whilst listening to it. And my warnings are the only ones I can really give without giving away the whole story is food, poo, pranks. It's absolutely grim. So as always, please, if you think the story is not for you, feel free to skip it. Timestamps are down in the descriptions below and along the timeline. Oh boy, let's get into it. Now, this next story comes from Mr. Garibaldi is shit, who says, am I the arsehole for ruining my brother's wedding cake? Just to be clear, I didn't actually do anything to the cake, but I'll just start from the very beginning, I guess. Growing up, my brother and I would play pranks on each other. I say each other, he would prank me, relentlessly. Any of you who are younger siblings will know that there will be that one particular moment that often comes up, even as you get older, that hey, remember when story that they'll retell to cackle at something devilish they did to you as a child. Our story was about a jar of cookies. Grandpa was an amazing baker and he made me a batch of cookies for my birthday. 9th birthday, I believe, which he'd seal in an airtight glass box for me. I don't know how or when, but my brother got a hold of this box and proceeded to, well, fart in it, then sealed it back up. On my birthday, he handed me the cookie box and said, Grandpa put some extra stank into this batch. I didn't know what he meant in the moment. I was too excited to try what looked like delicious cookies. I opened the glass lid and got blasted in my face by the stench of stale ass, then immediately threw up in the jar, all over the cookies. A tale my brother has told repeatedly to his delight since. Fast forward to now, my brother's wedding day. This wasn't a thought out plan. I hadn't been scheming over it, it was a spur of the moment. My brother had retold the story yet again at his bachelor party 3 days prior to embarrass me, and I guess the story was just fresh in my mind. Ceremony is over, all went well, and on to the reception. They are posing for photos before cutting the cake, and I don't know why it came to me, but I just leaned over to my brother as his wife was about to take a bite and said, I put some extra stank into the cake. I thought he'd laugh. He did not. With the reflexes of a mother leaping across to rescue her newborn from something dangerous, he slapped the cake out of her hands. There were some gasps, some laughs. No one really knew what was going on, me included. He whispered in her ear. She looked me in the eyes for a good 5 to 10 seconds, then just started to cry. She runs off and everyone is confused. Then my brother confronts me. He thought I did a shit in the cake as revenge for the cookies. I told him I didn't and it was just a dumb joke, but he was too mad to listen. She told her bridesmaids I did shit in the cake. Sure enough, soon everyone thinks I shit in the cake. I was too embarrassed to protest, so I just went home. It's been a week and I've not spoken to them, nor anyone else from the wedding barring my wife. I keep feeling guilty, even though I didn't actually do anything. Am I the arsehole? Now, I haven't seen a story quite as wild as that. I probably have, but in a very long time. Dude used to prank you, farted in a jar, you puked in the jar, ruining the cookies, and then you sought your revenge years later by implying you shit in his cake. And there is just layers to this madness. Oh, unintentional cake pun there. But this post was an overwhelming not the arsehole. And I kind of agree with, some of the not the arsehole comments. If you can't take it, you shouldn't be giving it out. But then I was also questioning, at the wedding, was this the right place to call this out at the wedding? I know it's absolute madness to think that you actually got your hands on their wedding cake and was able to do something to it. When you're not making it yourself, a baker would have been making it, or a family member or something, and you'd have had to sneak into wherever it was and then somehow defecate in the mix. But I do question the brother at the same time, gleefully telling this story over and over again. I know sibling rivalries and pranks and stuff like that. I've been through a few of them. I got 3 brothers, for goodness sake, but we've never been that low. That's awful. And I'll just give you an overview of most of the comments. That was pretty much, brother can deal it out, but couldn't take it. It just went along those lines, which Opie replied in the edit and said, I'd like to have responded individually, but this received a bit more attention than expected. Thank you for all the responses, of all kinds. The only person I could really discuss this with so far was my wife, who of course will always be on my side. I couldn't tell friends in case they jumped to the same irrational outcome as my brother, so I didn't really know if I was the arsehole or not. As relieved as I am that the majority here agree I wasn't in the wrong, I do still take on board the criticism from the other side. It was probably a very poorly timed moment to make that joke, but like I said, I didn't scheme away at doing this, it was impulsive. However, I have to take ownership of my actions nonetheless. A few of you have said you'd be interested in an update. I'm unsure on the sub's rules regarding this, but I'm going to try and speak with my brother tomorrow after work, so I will post something if allowed once we have spoken and have, hopefully, smoothed things out. Then OP goes on to the update, which says, I don't know if these are allowed, but people expressed interest, so if it's against the rules, just remove it. I'm also unsure how to link the previous post to this one, as I am not the most tech savvy, so just check my account. A quick summary for anyone reading but unfamiliar with my first post. I made a poorly timed joke during my brother's wedding reception as a spin-off a practical joke he played on me. No one was amused and I was accused of doing something disgusting. Most people here agreed he overreacted and I wasn't the arsehole, but some thought I should apologize anyway, which I took on board, so reached out to my brother after a week of total silence. I'd like to say it went well. It did not. I texted my brother to come to my house after work so we could talk. He bluntly accepted. We didn't really get to talk though, because as soon as he pulled up in his car, he started yelling at me on the driveway. Turns out my prank fucked things up more than I realized. After I left the wedding reception with my tail between my legs, they got in some kind of argument and didn't even go to their honeymoon, for which he blames me. He is still maintaining I took a shit in the cake, and the reason is something that a lot of people here realized that my naive 9-year-old self didn't. He did a shit in my cookies. I obviously didn't get the specifics mid-argument, but it came out that's what he did. I don't know how, as it was in a glass box, so you'd have seen if someone parked a turd on top. I can only assume he smeared it along the bottom as some type of paste, so people would think it was just chocolate oozing out. When I vomited in the box, he got away with blaming it on a stale fart. He thinks I figured it out and shit in the cake as revenge. I tried defending myself here. In fact, some of your responses helped. How would I do this? Is the baker in on it with me? Did I pull off some elaborate ruse to get access to the fully formed cake to shit in it? He wasn't having any of it though. He says he knows I shit in it and he's going to get the cake forensically tested to prove it. He's even threatening legal action. Eventually, my wife had to intervene at the shouting match on our doorstep as he was getting increasingly aggressive, as she was worried he may get violent. She got rid of him and I just went back inside to try and process it all. I got in touch with his wife a few hours later, as people's responses made me realize that even though my brother may be an arsehole, her big day was definitely soiled by my actions, and that wasn't fair. Thankfully, she seems a lot more forgiving than him. We spoke on the phone for a while and we knew the truth about the cookies. Shit, not farts. Which is why she believed him when he said I shit in the cake, but as they argued through the night, she realized that I was innocent. I didn't want to pry, but it sounded like there had been relationship problems that led up to the marriage anyway, and his overreaction was just the tipping point. She's moved out and is staying with her parents now, and I suppose my brother finds it easier to pin the blame on their problems on me than reflect on his own behavior. I brought up my brother's claim about testing the cake and she actually laughed, which reassured me that he's the only one thinking about such desperate measures. In conclusion, I may have been ruled not the arsehole, but my actions have ruined the marriage. She's moving out, my brother is lawyering up, and they're getting an annulment, and I may or may not receive a subpoena asking me to poo in a box. For fuck's sake. Oh my word. This post just got worse and worse. I was going to say shittier and shittier, but not the place, Mark, not the place. And I wasn't going to read this one because after I read it, I was like, oh, can I put this one on there? There are a lot of people eat during listen to these stories, and I will put a warning up in front. So I really hope you've taken that warning on board. And after all that, I come back to the original prank and, you know, hearing him smear stuff in the box. And OP said it was his 9th birthday, he believed. So what was his brother? Couldn't have been too much older or a year older or whatever. And a kid thinking of doing something like that, it just seems a bit off to me. You know, I got nieces and nephews who's around that age. Yes, I was a late child. I just can't imagine. Nothing like that would ever cross their mind at that age. It just seems like complete madness to me. And I have to say it, but that third from last paragraph where he said her big day was definitely soiled by my actions. Come on, bro. What do you guys make of this disgusting story? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Oh my word, I'm sorry. And let's move on to another one. This story comes from Primary Pepper 1532, who says, am I the arsehole for charging a $70 fee to family members who last minute cancelled their RSVPs to my wedding to attend my mother's wedding? I, 26 female, just got married to my husband, 30 male. I have a rocky relationship with most of my family on my mother's side. Haven't seen my mother in roughly 7 or 8 years. We haven't spoken, the typical strained mother-daughter relationship. Regardless, I chose to invite some of my family from my mother's side to attend my wedding. It was small and very intimate, so I wanted the important family to be there. While I by no means have a great relationship with the people on that side of the family, they did a lot for me when I was younger and I wanted them to be a part of this special day. My mother was not invited for a number of reasons. She's known to steal the spotlight and cause problems, plus she has openly shot down and berated my husband to family members despite never meeting him on the basis that he is an artist, and that's how he makes a living. He makes far more a year than she ever has too, a little ironic, so inviting her was just not a smart choice. Anyways, after sending invitations, word of course gets out on that side of the family that I'm getting married. I get a call from my cousin about 3 weeks before the wedding. She wanted to warn me that my mother had decided, for whatever twisted reason in her mind, to get married to her fiancé of now a couple of years on the exact same date. Keep in mind that my wedding was planned 8 months in advance. A week before my wedding, I get a call from one of my aunts on that side explaining that she will be unable to attend due to a family matter that has arisen. Code word for my mother's wedding, of course. As soon as I got that first call, I sent out a mass email to everyone explaining that anyone else who cancels last minute who has already RSVP'd will be charged $70 due to the catering and venue fees that will be wasted on them not being present. I would be able to enforce this given that all parties had to pay an additional $25 for each room that we booked for them at the hotel. So I had all their information and they were made aware of this charge. We paid for the rest of their room fees, by the way. Logically, I wasn't actually planning on enforcing this. It was more of an I know what you are all doing and I'm really mad about it move. So I spent about 2 days after that email dealing with non-stop phone calls from family on that side saying they had to cancel, and it was absolutely ridiculous that I was forcing them to pick a side. I told them they had RSVP'd to my wedding months before my mother's, and coming to mine was also just blatant common courtesy. Long story short, that entire side did not show up, aside from my cousin who warned me of the whole thing. I'm still debating actually charging their cards $70, but I think it's too petty, and being honest, writing and even thinking about this on my honeymoon isn't fun. I spent the second night in fucking France crying on my husband's shoulder over this. So, am I the arsehole? It followed with a little update, which I don't think adds too much, but it says, we'll be not charging the cards because fraud. Thanks everyone for reminding me that those charges do exist and that my mother's side would most likely press them. Now, I got to say, I do understand where OP's coming from, and there's obviously a lot of background on this and what's been going on with that side of the family, etc. But I think if I was in a guest position and I received an email like that, I think it would get my back up a bit, and it'd sort of make me feel unwelcome in some ways to be spoken to like that. Don't get me wrong, I see where they're coming from. The mum is an absolute awful person in this. Who does this, man? Honestly. And I won't touch on, charging them, because there's no way you can, because you'll end up getting arrested for it. And there's plenty of comments that's already saying that down below. And in some ways, I kind of feel like with that email you sent out, you assisted your mother in some ways, and because now she can talk more shit behind your back, most likely, when there may have been other ways to deal with it, getting in contact with the family members and discussing, have you seen what my mum has done? She's booked her wedding on my date. You might not be able to have a decent conversation with them, only you know that, but I kind of think maybe you could have twisted it in your favor, because any logical person could see how shitty that is. But yeah, this is like all those people not going to your wedding and your mum. It's just like, why do you want these people in your life? They're not healthy for you. They're not helping you. You're on your honeymoon, worrying about them. They just generally sound like awful people. Dragons Love Boxes says, not the arsehole, but cut all contact with everyone but the cousin that warned you. What a bunch of horrible people to be related to. MM172 says, everyone sucks here. Congratulations, you played straight into your mother's hand and made yourself look like the unreasonable one instead of her. I'm sorry it cost you this much to learn that you can't count on your family of origin, but literally charging them for it will not change or fix that. Forget them and focus on the family you're building with your husband instead. Opie replies saying, me 3 years ago would have probably agreed with you, but I learned over time that being the good guy and just letting stuff like this sit ends up making me hurt worse and vocalizing my frustration as well. I'm not actually planning on charging them again. It was far more of a threat than actually following through. I knew they were never going to attend mine either way. It was more making sure that I put up a fight too, and not just back down. Sexy says, your mother is a piece of work. She worked hard to evacuate your wedding. This is her fault. It's unclear whether the people who went to Mum's wedding understands how viciously she snubbed you. If they knew and went along with it, I'd definitely reevaluate your relationship with them. If money isn't the problem, changing the cards is kinda petty. Sometimes petty is okay, but generally it just adds to the drama. You might just consider the $70 as a finder's fee for figuring out who you never have to deal with again. Not the arsehole. Chuckin' Buck says, you're the arsehole, please stop. You're acting like your mum, and I know that's not what you want. You chose to leave her game and now you're playing in it again. You have to say stop and say, I understand that this is your choice, but please understand your support meant a lot to me. Opie replies says, I did that for years and years and played the good guy and got hurt time and time again. This wasn't about actually preventing them not to come, but in my eyes, I wanted to put up a fight. I was sick and tired of always being put down because people knew I was just going to back down and let them side with her all the time. I knew they would side with her. I just wanted to send a clear message that it wasn't going to be as easy this time around. Now, what do you guys make of this one? What would you do in this situation? I can only see one way, and that's just like no contact with anyone who turned on you in that moment. But what do you guys think? What would you do? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support, and time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you for being awesome, being involved, and just being incredible, not just to me, but to one another as well. If you'd like a different format to listen to, mark-narrations.com, where you can pick out your favorite podcasts there, or support the channel, never expected, but always appreciated, over on patreon.com/Mark Narrations. And hopefully I will see you, you cheeky so-and-so, in the next one. Take care, guys, and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. You just don't. Still selling false hope cause you just don't care. House, feel. If we talking to a uniform, who the real? You know we in the deep south, so let's keep it real. This is what they used to mob, lynch, drag, and kill. I never made the party cause I felt the paper bags. Gotta get this money cause you know I never had it. I'm feeling like Badu the way I carry my baggage. This heavy load on my shoulders might turn me to a savage. Is that why I gotta fight to get respect? That's a shame, who's to blame? I don't know, but all I know is that we still rocking them chains. Still taking that whip, still trying to get paid. Still trying to find God, still trying to act saved, yeah. Put a youngin' on the corner, now he winning. By 27, he'll be dead or in prison.